Hey you! Did you ever hear about the 4 Asian tigers and the tiger cub economies? No? Well, the 4 Asian tigers are countries in Asia that underwent rapid industrialization and developed in a short time from developing nations to industrialized countries. The cubs? They want to follow this model too. So, do you want to know how this giant region was hit by a huge economic crisis? Let's find out. Before we start, I need your help. I already published a few videos, which are the first that I have ever made, and I'm still learning a lot about editing, voice recording, and how I can present these topics to give you better content. If you're interested in economics and economic history, please subscribe to my channel, leave a like, give me some love in the comments, share this video, and also let me know in the comments below what other topics I should cover for you in upcoming videos. With that out of the way, let's go back to the video. As the financial sector was heavily liberalized in Asia during the 1990s, a credit boom took place. The amount of credits was growing stronger than the actual economic growth. And hoping for a stronger growth of the economy, a lot of the credits were invested into stocks and real estate. As the asset prices were quadrupling, the banks thought the credits have strong securities and gave out even more loans. This was of course a vicious circle, as the security was just based on speculation on the market. Another driving factor for this crisis was that the banking institutions themselves usually lend their money on the international market on short term and usually in US dollar or yen. However, the credits that were given out were in the local currency and usually long term. As long as the credits were paid back, the banks were profiting from the interest on the international financial markets. Furthermore, it seemed that the exchange rates to the US dollar or yen were secured by the governments, which seemed to lower the exchange rate risk, which therefore the banks didn't cover in an appropriate manner. And indeed, for a decade everything seemed fine. Until the mid of the 90s, the nations in Southeast Asia were profiting heavily, until the exchange rate of the dollar was rising. It became more and more difficult to pay back the credits. The Federal Reserves in Southeast Asia often also had just low foreign exchange reserves, meaning they were not able to stabilize their own currency to fight the downward spiral. After years of strong economic growing rates, the Asian region saw itself confronted with a heavy recession. Investors were skeptical or scared to lose their money, and the gross domestic product in these countries were shrinking drastically. In Indonesia, minus 13.7%, in Thailand, minus 8%, South Korea, minus 5.5%, and also Hong Kong with minus 5.1%. As the Asian crisis was worsening, the International Monetary Fund tried to intervene and gave about 39 billion to Thailand, Indonesia, and South Korea. This was backed up by further programs of other governments and international organizations. The money from the Monetary Fund and other organizations were offered if the governments tightened their monetary policies to prevent from further worsening the exchange rates, as well to a more restrictive fiscal behavior. Furthermore, existed demands for structural reforms, especially regarding regulatory bodies for the banking sector. Other reforms should have nurtured the economic growth again. The International Monetary Fund itself sees his involvement in this crisis as a big success. Especially in the US, however, these measurements were heavily criticized, with the argument that US taxpayer is in the end bailing out American banks in Asia. Another few criticized points were, first, as the monetary fund was helping in other crises before, the Asian financial institute and governments could expect that the International Monetary Fund would help again in a crisis. Therefore, higher risk could easily be taken. Second, raising the interest and taxes during a recession and cutting the governmental spending is counterproductive during a recession. Therefore, the monetary fund shouldn't have demanded that. Third, the International Monetary Fund was just focusing on fiscal criteria in this crisis. With this, the countries were indirectly forced to cut, for instance, the spending into their educational system or subsidizing food for poor citizens. And last but not least, with the demands of the International Monetary Fund, they were basically cutting the sovereignty of the governments. But until mid of 1998, most currency already recovered their losses and stabilized their value. With this, also the international trade for these countries stabilized. Even though the crisis hit Asia very hard, in Europe and America, not much was felt of this crisis. This was due to the reason that neither the US nor Europe was dependent on imports of the tiger or the cub states. China wasn't affected by the crisis, and as a result, the Asian crisis did not turn into a worldwide crisis, but limited to the Southeast Asian region. Have you ever heard of the Asian crisis? Were you aware of the Tigerstates? Or did you ever travel to the wonderful region of Southeast Asia? Let me know your experiences in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and also watch my other videos. And I'll see you in the next one.